Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing today? Amazing. Glad we're here and made it here safely. I am Tevon Blair. And I'm so glad to be with you all today for this panel discussion. I am a resident of Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm from Chicago. And so today we will be speaking a lot about like culture and memes and how it influences pop culture itself, but also the credibility in that as well. And so inviting our panelists up to the stage, would love for you all to join me now, and I'll introduce you all. And so we have people from different industries regarding social justice, from the media, from the education space, and also social media itself, as we see our lovely friend right here. And so to introduce our panelists, we have Dr. Christine McWhorter, the assistant professor at broadcast journalism at Howard University. And then we have with Organized Memes.
Hi.
Digital organizer and creator, our lovely friend here. And what animal is this?
A panda.
Lovely. And so also we have Ms. Portia Allen Kyle, the interim executive director of Color of Change. And then King Willonius, AI architect and stand-up comedian. Did I get that correct? Got you. Okay. So I'm gonna come sit down with y'all. There we go. So our panel discussion today is really focused in on memes, culture, credibility, and really seeing like how do our industry, I'm a communications professional as well, everyone wants to be in front of the scene or get the visibility. And sometimes people do that in a way that have a few risks. And so I'll start with you as a professor. Like, what role do you believe that you play into educating today's youth? And yes, social and like pop culture is important, but as they're storytelling, how do you tell them that, hey, this is a great story to have, but how are you making sure that the facts are there and that you can still capture that culture moment?
That is a great question. Thank you so much. I will say two things. The first thing that I tell my students is always be conscious of your values first. We are dealing with a time in history that they need to be speaking up and making their voices heard. So one of the primary things we talk about in our classes is speaking up for those who are marginalized and those who don't have that opportunity to speak for themselves. So their cultural values, their personal and professional values, but most of all, what are the things that need to be said and what are the things that need to be put out? And then the second thing, in terms of getting the facts right, this is a time where misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation are rampant. So first and foremost, they always need to make sure that they're doing their own fact checking, but having media literacy and making sure that they understand as journalists and as consumers what they're consuming, what the effects of that are, and then also making sure that when they put those stories out, they take the time to make sure that everything is correct, that they're not rushing to do it so quickly that they're, letting inaccuracies slip. And finally, I'll add one more thing. And finally, I think culturally, fact-checking is important because there's not just factual misinformation and disinformation. We're dealing with a whole different arena with this racialized misinformation and disinformation. So things like the backlash against DEI or things like affirmative act, things like that, they need to fact-check and do it in real time. And so I'm grateful to be at Howard because that's a place where we can speak to those issues freely without the fear of backlash that other professionals might get and other students might face. And I encourage them to do that every chance they can.
Thank you. And I kind of want to define some of these terms that we're talking about: misinformation, malinformation. And so sometimes when people talk about misinformation, it's unintentional. Like, someone could post the wrong date or the wrong information online in good faith of wanting to put that out, but there are bad actors out there that are putting things out intentionally, and that's where disinformation comes in. And so I always would love for like a deeper explanation on like the malinformation to explain that real quick?
I'm happy to do it. So thank you for the misinformation, disinformation, absolutely correct. Malinformation is information that is technically correct but taken out of context. So as misinformation might be just blatantly wrong, like you said, a wrong date or a misspelling of a name but unintentional. Disinformation is when people flat out lie. Malinformation might seem true, but it's not necessarily the context. So someone might say, people of color or black people get arrested more. We do, but we're also over-policed. There's also inequities in our neighborhood, so the context makes a difference there. So malinformation makes it seem like something is true, but the context will show you that it's actually incorrect.
Thank you. And so to start off with our panelists, with Organizer Memes, it's a leader in this space of understanding strategy, understanding how people can see a meme and have different alternative meanings. And so what makes memes like so powerful in shaping narratives?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think one is short form is king right now. I always say, I compare, I do trainings for how to make memes for mostly young people, and I put up a tweet from Nancy Pelosi, and then I put up a meme that has the exact same amount of information, that's being conveyed, or at least the point is being conveyed. And I use 5 words, and that tweet uses, all 280 characters, and then it's also a full press release underneath it, right? So, that's one of the things is, especially, with attention spans, most people don't even finish the point that the person's trying to make online at this point. With memes, because so much of it is a cultural understanding that we already have come to, the picture has spoken 1,000 words already, and so you can put 5 words in. By the time the person has even understood what the point you're making is, they've already consumed the entire piece of media. There's almost nothing like that. I mean, I watch my sister, who is 23, on Instagram Reels, and 3 seconds into a point, she's gone, right? So so much of, I have friends that write, these amazing press releases, and they spent 3 days on them, and I'm like, okay, but no one read that. I also think people are looking for information from people that they actually trust, and unfortunately that isn't press, that isn't our elected officials, that's some person that they just hear from every day, and they know that person's live, and they know that person would never deceive them, even if there is, and that I have that happen to me, right? People have built real parasocial relationships with my account, where even if I posted something that was completely incorrect, they're never going to fact check that because they know that I would never lie to them. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, I think I try and hold myself to a higher standard, but there is no standard as an influencer, right? As a journalist, you have to have all these things, and that's, I think, also one of the not to go totally off topic, but there was recently a journalist that came out with a very critical story about influencers, and then the influencers responded with their millions of followers, having no need to do fact-checking, having no need to have an editorial thing. So it's literally just the pace that you can go at is so much faster. And it's also how people are actually speaking, right? How many times do you tweet? Do you send in a group chat words that sound like a Nancy Pelosi press release, right? Very rarely does that sound like normal communication, versus how many times in your group chats is there a meme, is there a joke, is there a cultural reference? And it also ties in, people don't want to be engaging with politics right now. I mean, some people do, but a lot of people really have tuned out. By making it fun, by making it humorous, you're able to kind of get in there. Sorry, it's so hot in here.
You're wearing it. You got it, okay?
Yeah, I did this outside in Arizona once. Oh, my God. Yeah, so that's
Hopefully
why
this the winter time, right?
What? No. It was springtime, but springtime out there is not springtime. But yeah, I think it's also just it's fun to be fun, and we want to be the side that is fun and not the side that is lecturing you and sounds like, no offense, a professor. Yeah. But I'm sure you're a great professor, and I'm sure I'd like to hear from you.
I totally am.
But at a time when people don't trust authority.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I want to take a pivot real quick when we think about just the rise of AI, the tech space, And as we think about like how we can have fans with us right now, I need one of those too. Thank you. And so, Willonius, if you can like speak to like one, I know you come from the comedy space and being and so blending tech, blending culture, blending comedy together, you know how to get an audience's attention. And so how to break through those ways. So if you can share a little bit of that as we get deeper into the conversation.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This is hilarious. You got a fan. I just.
For the record, it's so that I stay anonymous. Like, I don't just.
Nah, I respect it. This is
Yeah,
actually the
I don't
dopest fan.
just wear a pants ad
This is
for
so dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. The question. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is actually,
Merging tech, AI, and comedy into one. That's a space. All in three of those industries, they have to capture an audience and get someone's attention.
Right.
And so, from your background, just anything you can just share about like capturing someone's attention in that space, but through those three different lenses. Like, are there any similarities there?
Yeah. I mean, for me, my main thing was always just to try to find cultural moments and add my comedic spin on them. So for those that don't know, I created a song BBL Drizzy, and then
BBL Drizzy.
Yeah, and then I had a couple other cultural moments on top of that. Yeah, so last year made the song Hawk Tua, and then the bleach blonde bad Bill. Yeah.
Butch body.
Yeah. But so, anytime there's a moment in the culture that everybody's talking about, I like to jump on that. And because I use AI and different technologies, it allows me to move at pretty much like the speed of culture, right? So like you look at a song like BBL Drizzy, it sounded like a 70s Motown song. Had I not had AI, I would have completely missed that moment. You know what I'm saying? Like I would have had to go find a 70s soul singer, do a photo shoot, mix and master the track. Like it would have just took really long. So like leveraging, these tools just allows you to, trying to just stay on the post. You know what I'm saying? And I think that to my man over here point, like you want to be able to like move, like your speed is your biggest advantage right now as a creator.
Thank you. And so, Portia, I'll come over to you. Yes, we're talking about culture, we're talking about memes, but as a leader of an organization that leads movements around social justice, and oftentimes misinformation can be spread just as fast as you're trying to get your message out about issues that are really impacting people. And so I know you probably have a team of folks who are like, hey, we have to meet this moment. We have to get in front of this. We have to put this meme out. And so how are you balancing as a leader humor, but also like credibility in the space? So we have a brand that we're part of and that we've been leading this space. How do we also keep our credibility up top there too?
Yeah, so I really appreciate that question because I think one of the biggest challenges is moving with the moment while also making sure, we work on mis and disinformation. We can't be the Black people putting out mis and disinformation because we're moving too quickly. Yeah. We have a, higher responsibility to our members, to our audiences, to make sure that we are doing our due diligence in order, to do so. And sometimes that does mean just practically we miss moments. I think the most important thing for us to always ask really goes back to a question of who's our audience and what are we trying to say to them? Because it is often the case that when we kind of dive a little bit deeper, we don't have to hit all the moments just because they're hot, right? Like, how does it tie? We are trying to move forward our campaigns. We are trying to move forward work. And some of the, and that tension between what's the kind of thing in the moment and how are we contributing and adding to the ecosystem? How are we moving the conversation along? How are we, making sure that that everything we do is moving our audience further down the line to where we need them to be in order to engage, where we need them to be in order to take action with us and to stand up and be in the right story around racial justice is a constant balancing act that we are always, I think, putting front and center of our analysis and how we move. Not always perfect, but I think there probably is no perfect answer when there's so much culture is moving 1,000 miles a minute, right? But the difference oftentimes between the memes that go extremely viral and that 10 years later, people haven't even seen, 10, 15 years later sometimes, like people haven't even seen the show that they came from, but they know, right? There's something that thing communicates. Like we're still using, memes and things of New York. Flavor of Love has been off the air for maybe almost 20 years, right? Like we're still, everybody knows what it means when people are, post that image of Duffy or, something of Nene who's, perhaps, yeah, like and always mid-eye roll, right? There's something that just gets universally communicated with some things, and trying to capture and capitalize on those types of things. Sometimes you don't actually have to work so hard to create something new. You could really kind of just be in conversation because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And a lot of, memes that are often of us, Black folks tend to drive culture, tend to drive images, tend to drive messages, and are disproportionately represented online in spaces where we are able to communicate with each other without words much more easily. And so there's this, function and this role and this balance that happens all at once that we're constantly trying to tie to campaigns as we're moving forward.
You brought up like when memes are circling around and we never know the source of it. And so a lot of the Real Housewives of Atlanta memes, I didn't realize, like I would be watching a show like, oh, this is when Phaedra was eating that chip. And she was like that's my favorite meme to use. And so just finding all those different moments, I think that that's like a part of history that continues to come, but also that's where disinformation comes in too, or how memes control narratives. Mm-hmm. And so for the panel, just a question of how do ourselves as communications professionals or people who just work in the space to share messages, when memes are packaged as, well, when disinformation is packaged as a meme, how do we get past that? How do we try to shift that narrative when that meme that is getting shared has more visibility than what you sharing as the truth? So anybody, who got that?
I mean, one thing is we have to counter message in the language that people are messaging, right? If you see a meme that's incorrect, going and having a 10-page long essay on why that's incorrect is not engaging with that person, but also like, unfortunately, engaging at all is part of the problem, right? So many of these things are not real people, first of all, and are never going to be convinced by us. And I think like that's one of the things is there is persuasion that needs to happen with real people, and that can be online, but like but that's never going to be fully by, we need a stronger message than their misinformation, and that's I think where we're really failing right now, is that there isn't a message that shows people, especially, I've seen people fall down the alt-right pipeline on my pages, and so much of it is that there is not something that they are grabbing onto that is a positive utopian world. And that's, I think, one of the problems with all of this is, we are combating people, the reason misinformation works is that people want the thing that they're hearing to be true. Right? It's rarely that it's completely out of left field. They've never thought about the thing before. The stuff that works is that the thing that, they already have a bias and it's confirming that bias. Complicity is like the worst thing you can have when you're scrolling online. It's not anger. Anger, you then get more involved. Complicity, you say, oh, that's true, and scroll past. Oh, sorry, still so hot.
If I could add on to that, because I love what you were saying about responding in the same format that the misinformation comes, especially coming from academia. We love a long format, a long lecture, a long peer-reviewed article. And I'm not going to say that nobody reads that. I think our work is very important, but I think people with pro-social and social justice messaging need to get more involved in short-form media, in memes, in a way that people will understand and enjoy. One of the things that work about memes is that emotion will make a message stick much more quickly than critical thinking. And we know I am a proponent of critical thinking, but the message comes across quicker and it stays. So since we have that, since we know that research, I think those of us involved need to get much more involved in putting the messages out in that way.
And I like that you were saying about the emotion part, because I think that's one of the things that we respond very like analytically to this stuff, when it's like a lot of the stuff that does really well for me when I post is not actually about the issue, it's about how I'm feeling about the issue. Because that's way more relatable, right? Like, it's way more relatable to feel strongly about, like, frustration about injustice is something that everyone has felt, but not everyone has been incorrect on their views on Ukraine, right? Like, it's a much more universal thing to, and also I think, like, even outside of memes, often, like, I did canvassing before all of this. Like, that's how I got into all this. It's why it's organizer memes. Is I was making memes about, knocking on doors. And, like, one of the things that I think was really helpful, oh my God, I totally just lost my train of thought.
I like where you're going with the organizing, though.
Was like literally talking to people, and instead of like arguing with them, I'd be like, well, this is really worrying me, right? And like that connected to them because they weren't being pushed on a narrative. They were saying, oh, this person that is like literally feet away from me that seems nice, like, is doing this for a real reason. And the fact that I had a good intention, and I think that also ties back to all this, is that people want to believe in a good intention, but they're so used to, unfortunately in politics, lies, deceit, back dealing, all that stuff, which is unfortunately often based in reality.
I would add too, I think we need to make telling the truth cool again. And like, like we need sources that we can go to when, it's like, this is the actual truth versus like, biased opinions and whatnot. Like when a celebrity, God forbid, passes away, we tend to go to TMZ to confirm, like, well, I haven't seen on TMZ or X, Y, and Z, so it might not be true. But, there's so much misinformation and there's so many people that are being swayed by, whatever type of interest that, they're being swayed by. But I think we just have to we need to amplify truth sayers, and it might not be super popular, but I think that'll help out with.
You adding something or no? Coming in?
On a little bit of a shift. Okay. I guess the thing that I've been thinking as I've been listening is like historically memes and other things also offer an opportunity for us. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. Also offer an opportunity for us to often communicate, particularly with, Color of Change is a Black-founded, Black-led organization that is digital first. We use the power of people and narrative to hold government and corporate actors to account, right? And so there's a way in which memes also function to allow us to just be sometimes the sarcastic, satiristic, comedic folks that we are, and do that extremely naturally. And I'll give an example that, sometimes when you don't proofread, you really hand people a gem. And I might age myself a little bit, but during Trump's first term, I don't know if this person ever got a job in social media and communications again, but somebody had put out, this thing that's like it should have said Trump wants a bigger Navy. And instead, it said Trump wants his N-word Navy. And that delivered a satire, you had to be there online in that moment.
I was there online.
It one of the greatest days ever, hands down, on Black Twitter, that was this political satire, but comedy, but all culture, all of the things coming together. And there've been a lot of those moments, right? The hashtags and the memes and the images and things like that from just iconic times, whether it's Paula's Best Dishes, right? Or which was all about the way in her racism and the way in which she didn't like Black people. And but there's just been a way in which we've been able to use things to bring folks together and into a story that actually is a racial justice story, that actually is political commentary, that is not framed politically, that is about making demands, about socializing new standards for what is acceptable, for the way in which people talk, with us, about us, or otherwise. People use memes all the time to, say, this might be online, but this is an insider conversation. Why are you here? Right? Like, people, there are things that we are doing that is, I think, political, even if it is not partisan, even if it is not framed in that way, that actually does help keep the momentum going and socializing and keeping alive some of the organizing that exists online for racial justice.
I think that we should lean into that even more because as someone who has been very online for the past 10 years, Twitter, now TikTok, a lot of those moments, I want to say, they played a role in politicizing me and how I communicate with my friends or my audience, I would say. And it's a way where people who are those thought leaders, there's people in this space that are sharing their opinions on things, they are also trusted voices. And so how are we identifying these people? Yes, we see memes, but going beyond the memes, people who are always sharing something, they also are sharing a message that is carrying throughout our community. And like you said, it's a cultural aspect, but it's also a way that we're talking about social justice issues. So how do we capture those moments and allow those to educate people about what's happening politically? And it exists outside of just that social moment, and that people are able to say that they're all able to not just say, my vote doesn't matter, I don't care about this. It's saying if you're able to engage on these social trends that are translated through memes, how are we able to translate that into action, getting off of social media and making real change in person? How do we do that, y'all?
Thinking it through.
Okay.
We need a minute. I'll say for me and my students, we're always making counter narratives, and I think that is for us that's primary. The counter narrative, just to define that, is the narrative that goes against whatever the mainstream is saying about a particular community. So as people who are marginalized and often oppressed, we become the producers, and we are the ones who put our story out rather than the other way around. And I do think there is a lot of conversation and discussion and research about how we're represented and representation matters and all of those things, but empowering students, and not just students, empowering everyone, because we're in a society now, we're not just consumers, we're prosumers. So most of the people who consume, a lot of them also create. Empowering people to tell their story is incredibly effective. Once people begin to speak and begin to learn that they have a voice and that voice has power, my belief is that there will be a tide. Right now, I think most people who use a TikTok, or most people who are on the internet, are lurkers, are scrollers. I believe that everybody has a message to give, and we're starting to see momentum build where more people are being empowered to share. That changes things. Narrative creates reality, right? And so when we are sharing those messages, we are gaining cultural consent, and it gives permission for people not only to speak, that those are the same things that give permission for policies to be made, for instance, or the cultural consent around people of color that allowed grants to be defunded, or for all of the issues that are going on currently where things, I keep thinking about being set back, right? That is caused by a cultural consent. So the same way that it works negatively against us, it works the other way as well, right? It can be a positive pro-social motion. And so for me, I think empowering more people to lift their voice is the way to begin that tide.
I think one thing, we are being outspent insanely, especially when it comes to infrastructure on this stuff. We don't have a Fox News equivalent. We don't have an OAN equivalent. We don't have a Sinclair equivalent. We don't have an InfoWars equivalent. We don't have a Turning Point USA equivalent. Like, we were winning the internet, I think, a couple years ago we were, and that's why they invested so heavily in this stuff. And if we aren't willing to, and I know I'm sure if the people in this room got to allocate where the money was going, it'd be allocated very differently. But I'm an influencer that does this stuff full time. I'm only able to do it because I literally work in politics, and politics, I worked on the Harris campaign doing digital for them. That's what made it feasible for me to be doing this work. If I was a conservative, I'd have $1 million. I would have already cashed out. I'd already be on an island somewhere having a good time. That's part of this problem is that Andrew Tate, for example, had at his height, I think 10,000 people that were every day making clips of his videos and posting it onto their own social platforms. And then whoever got the highest engagement videos of his stuff got a free Lamborghini, right? That is creating probably 25,000 videos a day that are being seeded all across the internet. We don't have anything even remotely close to that, and that's, I think, as you were saying, we need to be empowering because we have people. We have more people than they do. Maybe not after this last election, but we really do, especially online where there's a younger demographic. And I think also, it's free to go viral. That's one of the things I think you can't
Manufacture.
You can't manufacture, and that's I think one of the reasons that memes are so cool is that they are top down. They are bottom up, not top down. You can't. I don't know any example of a celebrity being this is a meme now, except for maybe that one Oscars selfie, but that barely was a meme. But it's mostly some random person. Someone here. I literally was doing it. Most of my memes are coming. At the beginning, were coming from my parents' bedroom or my parents' basement, basically vibes. We need to build things that are ready to react. Because I think the Charlie Kirk example was a great example, unfortunately, of how behind we are. And partially because people were scared to say anything at the beginning, but also because the outrage machine does not exist two ways, right? When Melissa Hortman is killed, we don't have an outrage machine to say, look how bad right-wing violence is, right? I got death threats 2 days before Charlie Kirk got killed. And there were people that in my own world didn't care, right? So and not that I'm saying that I'm the same thing, but there's just not the same level of vitriol. And unfortunately that creates a less viral, less persuasive case.
I think we're going to add something here? I was just going to add in as we bring into this conversation, how are we centering young people? And how are young people leading the strategy and not millennials, older millennials? No shade to anybody. It's just I'm a younger millennial. I'm the last year, and I don't understand some things. Right. And so I sometimes don't have the understanding of how students who are currently in college or in high school, how they are understanding memes or understanding social media, how fast their attention span goes. And so sometimes people are at the higher ups, they have this strategy and it's that's what we're going to do. And I'm y'all, I'm 29, I don't understand what's going on. So how are we having our interns not just post stuff, but how are they actually influencing strategy? So that's why I wanted to kind of center the conversation. Because we can give all the ideas out on stage right now, but how are we thinking about the young people, make sure that next time we do have a movement or being in a movement currently right now, where are the young people leading that change?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just to kind of piggyback on the last conversation. I just think that people move based on two things. It's either inspiration or desperation. And I think that the conservative movement, they have great messaging. You know what I'm saying? It's God, family, and country. You know what I'm saying? That's something that a lot of people can just relate to, and I think that in order to just really get people to, if they were saying they were giving away free Jordans or free Beyonce tickets, you don't have to sell that to nobody. Everybody, y'all would run out this thing right now. Y'all just, right, you know what I'm saying?
I would.
So, getting people to move, I don't think that, that we just have to find something that really connects with people. I think that that's the problem. The messaging isn't really connecting with people enough to say, I have to go outside of, making a video or being a Twitter activist. I don't have to really take action. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that, I'm not a political. I don't work on any campaign, so that's not my job.
You don't got to be on a campaign to be political. I won't.
No, I'm just saying, like, I don't. There are very smart people that are political science majors and this and that spend all their time thinking about this. But when I kind of just look at it, I'm like, this, to me, that's the fundamental issue. Like, there's not something that really, okay, that's you. Yeah, so you would be able to answer that. But those are my thoughts.
I mean, the thing I'd add about the strategy is that, in many ways, I think our ecosystem as like advocates is a bit behind. And the like interesting thing I think about younger generations, while like some of us, I'm not an elder millennial, I'm like a mid-millennial, but folks are really stuck on the things that were like hot to them when they were coming, to wherever they think they were coming from or going to. Like things, they are really stuck on traditional platforms. And there's a role for that, right? Like if your audience is like mid to elder millennial, then there's probably a reason to be on certain places. There's, for us, a lot of the like progressive bona fides at a point was like, how do you need to get off of X, you need to get off of X. We cater to Black people. Black people are still on X. We cannot abandon the folks that we are trying to talk to and engage with just because you think said folks, like, just because you think that it's, not a progressive thing to do in being in a space. And so there's that, like, starting with your values, starting with, knowing your audience, but also recognizing, and I find the younger generation fascinating because they're like, we don't have to stay here. We can we can do all these other things. And there are so many other different platforms, but it's hard when the algorithm broke because I'd say we were winning the internet. And then they realized they control the algorithms, right? And they control the infrastructure. And the infrastructure is a lot more situated to facilitate right-wing conservative messages than it is to and hate and, all the things that are perhaps not the best image, views, or, messages or the best information, et cetera. Like that is what the algorithm caters to. There are some things, that happen that we'll never see. It is completely broken. You put things into the world. You don't go viral the way that you used to. It's not about followers. It's not about like how good your message is. It's not about humor. Like it really is more explained by the algorithm itself. And once folks realize that on some of the larger platforms, it's a lot easier to, okay, well, I'm going to go curate my audience and, find them here. Lean into Reddit, a lot, which surprises me, but like, they're looking for community often, and they're finding it in other places. They're finding it on Discord. They're curating it on Snapchat. They're, finding it on TikTok. They're in the threads on Reddit. They're, in all of these different places that are just not where we even have the funds and capacity to, tie it to the money to be in all those places. And that, I think, is one of the biggest challenges in catering to a number of folks, because we are not a monolith. Finding them where they are and then communicating authentically does become a resource question at some point in time.
I think also it's harder for us by definition because we are a big tent, right? So what is communication that looks good look like? Also includes Spanish language. Also includes, depending on, in New York, 15 different languages. Also includes, as opposed to, unfortunately, the right has to think about a much more, I don't know exactly the word to use, but uniform, right? As long as they're reaching kind of like 50-year-old white men, like they feel pretty good about it, and especially because most of our culture is catered towards that already, like you don't have to put in, so we have a secondary challenge in that we have to be reaching not just one community, we have to be reaching literally every community at every age group if we want to build kind of the world that we need to. You were saying about young people, I think one of the things that I've had the hardest time doing, because I'm both a young person influencer, but then also being hired by often, I worked for a state party a couple months ago, doing all their content leading up to their convention, right? And the person that hired me was like their digital person, but the person making all the approvals was their executive director and their like 5 other people at like the top level, and a comms consultant that was in their 50s. And every person there had a ability to veto any piece of content that I had produced. I was getting 90% rejection rates on my content, right? How, like, they were wasting money at some point. And I remember one of them was, they'd give me comments, and some of them would make no sense if you understood the internet, right? One was like, why did you choose this ugly character? And I was like, that's Squidward. Or I was making like a PBS-related meme because, the defunding, and they were like, what is that character? And I was like, that's DW from Arthur. And so, like, that was one of the things, was like, there was a lack of trust, right? And like, that's one of the things I think there's a risk aversion that a lot of people, especially that talk to the funders, that talk to all these different things, they aren't, the people that often make the decisions about funding, about all these things, have a different, my job is to get someone to go viral. Their job is to have an organization that continues existing in 20 years. Like, those are often don't feel the same, and often feel like you're being pulled in 2 different directions. And if you only have, especially because the power comes from the top, the power comes from the people that have more experience. But I have more experience, actually, if we're talking about the internet, right? I grew up with it. I understand this stuff in a way that is so much deeper. But that isn't a type of experience that is, in most work environments valued. So I think that we have to kill kind of the hierarchies that are allowing these things to kind of also exist. And also I think, I've been talking to a lot of my friends who work in comms, and killing the comm staffer in your head type thing, I think is an important part of it. We have to take some risks. We are going to lose otherwise.
Thank you. As we come to a close, if we can just get like one sentence from, or just maybe one word to young people, or even just people in general, of how they can lead in this moment, how they can use social media and merging with culture to make a change. And anyone can do that. So I'll start with Portia.
Wait, are we a sentence or a word?
Whatever you desire.
Ooh, don't tell me that. A paragraph.
I'll say a minute. Just talk for a minute.
No, it's all good. I would say it's something about like leaning and trusting yourself, and like who your people are and what they're looking for. Sometimes I think virality and the concept of virality like really dissuades people from really putting something that's worth it out there. But the people that you are most able to bring along are the people that you regularly deal with in your orbit. And so lean into that trust of yourself and put that out there to move folks along.
Thank you.
Mine is kind of an addendum to yours, Portia. I would say, if you have something to say, please, please, please create. And don't be concerned about it's going to flop, it's going to go viral, it's going to, to your point earlier, that whole season of communication being in mass and everybody is watching and consuming the same thing, that's done. So it's micro influencers anyway. Everybody's going to have their own sphere that they can influence. And so I would say if you have any message at all, put it out there, because it's going to reach someone. And I think that's how we change the tide against all that money and all that effort all of those resources that they have. We have the effort and we have the army, so we can do it.
I would say be consistent. I think consistency is the key. Whether you're consistently good or bad, just stay consistent. And leverage AI. It's the greatest tool that you have at your disposal right now. So leverage AI and try to be authentic. Try to just be real. Don't find your center, and then pray to your God, whoever you pray to. Stay prayed up.
Yeah,
That's
happy
it.
Rosh Hashanah, by the way, everyone. Sorry, and I think kind of fuck it.
Right after
this
pray?
this can't. Yeah,
Eat, pray, fuck it. That's
Okay,
what we do.
okay.
Like, I think the level of seriousness, like, is a problem. And also, like, just get started. I think like, so many people never start, and it's pretty easy, actually, once you get started.
Thank you. Well, you all, we can speak about this for hours. I think there's probably a meme going viral right now that we'll have to understand. And so thank you all for being here, and thank you to the panelists. We have a lot of work to do.